from today marks a huge moment of progress for human health as the patent on the drug Bedaquiline expires, allowing less expensive
Gotta pee again, and then I'm gonna get on the
versions to be
treadmill and
produced
start
that
walking.
can cure far more people living with multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. Wait, what's that? Oh, well, that's unfortunate. What will actually happen next Tuesday is that the company Johnson & Johnson will begin enforcing a secondary patent, thus denying access to Bedaquiline to around 6 million people over the next 4 years. And that's where we come in, Nerdfighteria, because I really think that if we can understand this problem together and make a compelling case to Johnson & Johnson that they are pursuing a bad business strategy, we can save a lot of lives. But first, some history. Tuberculosis is the world's deadliest infectious disease. It killed about 30,000 people last week, which is especially horrifying given that it is usually curable, generally with a cocktail of drugs given daily over 4 months. But drug-resistant TB that isn't cured by that cocktail is a growing problem. So between the 1940s and the 1960s, we developed and synthesized 8 different classes of drugs that could treat tuberculosis. And then between the 1960s and the end of the 20th century, no new drugs were developed to treat tuberculosis for the simple reason that we stopped investing money in TB treatments because it was no longer a problem in rich countries. Now, for the record, if we continue this strategy of global health, caring about infectious disease only when it affects rich countries, we will continue to see more and more drug resistance until eventually a strain of disease emerges that we can't cure, which will spread globally and cause a pandemic, which will affect rich countries, and that's one reason to end TB now. Another reason is that all human lives are equally valuable, and it's completely unacceptable that this year 1.6 million people will die of a curable disease. Right, so we had these lost decades where we didn't discover any new TB treatments, but then the incentives changed. Governments started to invest much more in research and even in funding trials, making it more interesting to pharmaceutical companies, and eventually Johnson & Johnson developed a new drug called Bedaquiline. Now, most of the money that went into researching and discovering Bedaquiline came from the public, it came from governments, but Johnson & Johnson did take some risks, did invest some money, full credit, and that's why in 2003 they got to file a patent for the drug compound Bedaquiline. Then, in 2007, they filed a secondary patent for Bedaquiline with this added fumarate salt. Now, one expert recently explained this to me as filing a patent for a pen cap that goes with your pen. Like, a pen cap makes your pen work better and last longer, but it's not the pen. And indeed, Johnson & Johnson always knew that they were going to have to develop a pen cap for their pen. They waited until 2007 precisely so that they could extend the length of their patent. So Bedaquiline becomes available to the public, and it has saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Like, a couple months ago, I was in Sierra Leone and spoke with 2 young women who were dying of tuberculosis, who were on their deathbed when they received this new cocktail of drugs containing Bedaquiline. They quickly recovered. Today, they are cured. They
That's
are
insane.
home with their families, and they are attending school. That's the power of this drug. But while the price of it has dropped over the last decade, it is still
Truly curable.
way too expensive for many communities. Like, a study by MSF indicated that if generics were allowed to be produced globally, the price of Bedaquiline would drop by 67%, from $1.50 a pill to 50 cents per pill. And that should be happening next Tuesday, because the original 2003 patent for Bedaquiline expires on July 18th, 2023. But unfortunately, in many countries, Johnson & Johnson is using that secondary patent on the pen cap to extend their exclusivity for 4 more years. During those 4 years, experts estimate that up to 6 million people who would have access to Bedaquiline in a world of generics won't be able to afford it, and most of those people will die. So if it sounds like I'm angry, that's because I'm angry. But I think we can make change here. Thanks to lawsuits filed by TB survivors led by 2 extraordinary young women, courts have decided that the pen cap is not adequate innovation, and so they have not granted the patent, which means that there are, right now, generic manufacturers ready to go making Bedaquiline. Unfortunately, they won't be able to distribute those generic medications to many countries with a high TB burden, including Sierra Leone. And that's where I'm hoping we come in, because we need to explain to Johnson & Johnson that this is a bad
Can't do
decision.
it, man.
Like, Johnson & Johnson is not some evil monolith. It's a company made out of people, and I genuinely believe that most of those people want their work to make the world better. I mean, J&J's corporate credo begins, "We believe our first responsibility is to the patients," and I want them to live up.
This is the problem with, like, you know, being pro-capitalist, even at this point. It's like, they don't give a shit. You explain that they don't give a shit, and then you're, like, trying to appeal to their good nature, while recognizing, but just somehow simultaneously forgetting that they have, for the past, decades that they've owned this patent, led to, like, basically genocide numbers of people dying purely for profit. Like, it's not that, if you consider that the next 4 years lead to 6 million people dying from curable, treatable disease, okay? Then you recognize that all those other years, so many people fucking died. They did that. We don't need to have it be this way. But it is impossible to dream of a future where, these corporations aren't operating in a profit-seeking motive.
Up to that credo. So there are links in the video info below and in a pinned comment to contact Johnson & Johnson and let them know that you find this attempt to evergreen their patent reprehensible and completely out of line with their credo. There are also links to J&J's social media. Tag them, share the news that Bedacquiline's patent should be expiring, saving so many lives, but instead is being immorally evergreened by Johnson & Johnson. Tell your friends about this injustice, tell your family, tell the internet, because the only reason Johnson & Johnson
this got corporate PR from Johnson & Johnson to give a big W to the Green brothers, but also to themselves. Enough stink happened that they probably did a cost assessment where they were like, well, the good PR that we can get from making this patent free for the next 4 years probably is better than maintaining the patent and, like, trying to squeeze out 4 extra years of profit out of it. And then that cost-benefit analysis led them to behave this way. But it also still forgets the reality that so many people died. You know what I mean? How do you reconcile the need for technology for social cause, but the source of that innovation coming from capitalism? I don't have to reconcile that at all, because that's not true. The premise here is faulty. The notion that, like, capitalism is a source for technological innovation is not only ahistoric, but completely laughable. Most of the innovation that you see under capitalism revolves around profit seeking, and in many respects, complete evisceration of genuine innovation. Innovation requires long-term goals. If you are short-term profit-driven, a lot of the things that you would choose to innovate completely are shut out from the market. One great example of this is pharmaceutical innovation, right? Novel chemical compounds, oftentimes people think, are created by profit-seeking pharmaceutical corporations in the Western world. That's not true. In terms of per capita novel chemical compound innovation, most of that is already still conducted in publicly funded research facilities like colleges and whatnot. Okay? But also beyond that, America actually falls short of plenty of other places where there's more public funding for that sort of innovation. America is just the largest country, the most powerful country, the wealthiest country on earth, so there's a lot of brain drain. And even with all of that, other countries are still better, and their pharmaceutical research is still better when we look at per capita novel chemical compound innovation. Americans love playing fast and loose and talk about the totality because of how big this country is and how wealthy this country is, not realizing that there are significantly more efficient nations when it comes to novel chemical compound generation, okay, or innovation. A lot of the American innovation in the pharmaceutical sector revolves around finding new delivery mechanisms so they can keep sitting on IP, keep sitting on patents, okay? A lot of the medical R&D, a lot of the medical research and development is either A, marketing costs. A lot of the spending on medical innovation is on the marketing side, new sales techniques and the like. But then the R&D almost always goes to new delivery mechanisms, so you can keep sitting on a patent for some kind of pharmaceutical product that you purchased from one of these research facilities that was publicly funded originally. What do I mean by this? If you find a new way to deliver the same exact chemical compound, you can extend your patent by oftentimes, I think it's 7 years. Another way that innovations are cut short, for example, in the medical field, is when the patent of a particular kind of medication is slated to run out, which means that now there will be generic versions of it, which means that the patent holder will no longer be able to maintain the same profit margins. When that happens, the pharmaceutical corporation will oftentimes drop any kind of other healthcare ailments that this medication can be good for. They'll drop all the R&D on that field because they recognize that the pharmaceutical product is no longer their own, is no longer solely held onto by them. One of the greatest, and this is a bit of a reductive argument, but one of the greatest examples of life-changing innovation coming not necessarily from for-profit driven capitalist sectors, but instead from publicly funded research is the military's R&D into creating the internet. Internet was not created as a product to be consumed by capital owners, and yet it has been the most innovative product that has the most innovative technological achievement that has truly changed the lives of every single person on the planet. If we had a profit-driven, short-term profit-seeking mentality towards that kind of innovation, in that when scientists were working on the internet, it would have never been made because there was plenty of failures that happened for many, many years before a viable product was created. I've been working at JPM for almost 10 years. Capitalism is not efficient, not even speculative financial capitalism. All profit-driven initiatives are always cost cuts. For chat, employees are considered costs. Working here made me even more of a socialist. Pharmaceutical corporations do not innovate because they want to heal people. They innovate because they want to make money. And if there's some kind of medical solution that does not make money for them, they will no longer research it. They will shelve it because they care about profits. This is how it works. And when I describe it to you on these terms, you come to the conclusion that this is truly fucking evil. Well, it's not evil. It's just capitalism. That's just how it works. If it has improved your life in any meaningful way, some kind of new technological achievement has improved your life in any kind of way, it's purely out of sheer luck that it has. Pharma scientists here, they don't even innovate. They let university and government do 95% of the work, and then they buy the patent, and then they sit on it for as many years as they can. Exactly.